Radio Thailand Dhamma Talk
นะโมตัสสะภะคะวะโตอะระหะโตสัมมาสัมพุทธัสสะ Homage to the Blessed One, the Worthy One, the fully self-awakened One. Sabbe satta maranti ja maringstu ja marischare Tathevahang marisami Nati me eta sangsayoti. Hereupon may I expound the Dhamma, the teaching of the Buddha for the increase and development of mindfulness and wisdom. On the occasion of the 50th day memorial service of His Majesty the late King Bhumibol Adulyadej, the world's development king. The aspect of the Dhamma to be expounded is on His Majesty the late King and Buddhism. Today is the 50th day rites of dedicating merit upon His Majesty the late King, His Excellency Glenn Davis, United States Ambassador to the Kingdom of Thailand, joined together with staff of United States Embassy in Thailand, are honoring for the Panya Samavara, or the 50th day rite of merit dedication, with a feeling of gratitude toward His Majesty the late King. The Buddha says there are two types of people who are hard to find in the world. Which two? The one who is first to do a kindness, and the one who is grateful and thankful for a kindness done. In saying that, kind and grateful people are rare. The Buddha was not simply stating a harsh truth about the human race. He was advising us to treasure these people when we find them, and more importantly, showing how we can become a rare persons ourselves. Gratitude is a rare quality in humans. It is the quality of people of integrity, of good and noble character. Ingratitude, on the other hand, seems to be the rule of everyday life when man displays his basic instincts. Being grateful, therefore, is a sign that we are making ethical and spiritual progress, that we are in the process of achieving a highest and a rare blessing in life. As a part of Dhamma practices, today we are expressing our sincere gratitude upon His Majesty the late King Bhumibol Adulyadej, the world's development king, who, for the benefit of many, happiness of many, and out of compassion, had served and contributed to Thai people and the world as a whole. In the first part of this sermon, may I briefly reflect on the noble life of His Majesty the late King. Certainly, the saddest news of this year was the demise of His Majesty the late King Bhumibol Adulyadej, whose leadership helped bring stability to Thailand over the past 7 decades. This caused the whole nation, as well as admirers of His Majesty all over the world, gripped by greatest grief and despair. The very name Bhumibol literally means the land's power, and it has become more of Thailand's power. For 50 days, with the demise of the Thailand's power, hearts of all Thai have weakened. However, do not let sorrow overrule our mindfulness and natural causes. Instead, let us all keep His Majesty's noble legacies alive in our hearts, to be the innumerable source of our power forever. Today's sermon is dedicated to the very His Majesty the late King, who has imprinted himself in hearts of Thai people. As a note, why 50th day rites are important in a Buddhist tradition, why the length of memorial service was fixed to 50 days is not entirely clear, but there is a reason to believe that it is a unique, universal Buddhist concept. It is practiced in most of the all Buddhist countries. According to Buddhist text, it says that the historical Buddha meditated for 49 days after the Enlightenment and before he began teaching to the world. This was not one continuous period of meditation, but was broken up into 7 different meditations of 1 week each. The number 49 is also mentioned in the same text with regard to an incident which occurs just prior to Prince Siddhartha's enlightenment. A woman named Sujata gives Siddhartha, who has become weak through extreme austerities, a bowl of milk rice pudding. According to the text, he shapes the food into 49 rice balls, which is called pinda, and eats them one by one. Notably, in both modern Hindu and ancient Brahminic funeral practices, pinda are a principal food offering to the ancestors as part of the ritual, during which each pinda or rice ball is offered to a specific generation of ancestors, covering from 3 to 7 generations. Therefore, it is possible that the number 49, being 7 times 7, is an esoteric statement of one-upmanship. It is interesting to speculate that the 49 balls the Buddha makes and eats might have come to represent in the Buddhist imagination the idea of 49-day transition period, at the end of which the deceased obtain a new body. Although this is a theory that will require careful study, it could also be suggested that the 49 days the newly enlightened Buddha spent in meditation could be seen as a transition stage from his death as a mere mortal to his rebirth as a fully fledged Buddha with the beginning of his teaching career. This universal Buddhist practice is celebrated in Thai Buddhist tradition as well, together with many other Buddhist countries. But in Thailand, it is done on the 50th day, because in Thailand, we celebrate in the completion of the 49th day. In the Buddhist text, once the Buddha told King Pasendi that the king ought to rule his country under the principle of righteousness, with earnestness and carefulness in all royal duties, treating his subjects as parents treat their own children. This reflects a very basic concept of the relationship between a king and Buddhism from its earlier times up to today. The relationship operates in terms of moral bond of cohesion of inner existence, interactivity, and interdependence. Following this Buddhist ideology, His Majesty the late King Bhumibol Adulyadej delivered a statement on May 5, 1960, when he was enthroned, which continues to echo in the memory of many people who took part in that historical event. His subjects have since lived in the comfort of that promise that I shall rule the land with righteousness for the benefit and happiness of the people of Siam. All activities throughout His Majesty's life, which he had accomplished for the benefit of humanity, were manifestation of the virtue of gratitude and wholesomeness, just as the dedication ceremony we are attending here and now, as it is attested in the Pali that Nimittang sadhurupanang katanyu katavedita, which means gratitude is a sign of a wholesome person. Similarly, sabbe satta maranti cha, etc. The Pali verse mentioned in the beginning of the sermon is a well-known verse of the Dhamma, one of the natural laws that points out to us all. It reads that all kinds of beings surely come to death. They have always died, will always die. in the same way I shall surely die. I have no doubt about this. Basically, the teaching points out that whatever has been born will surely die sooner or later. This has always been so in the past and will continue to be the case in the future. Having arisen, all sorts of things, sentient and insentient, are sure to decay and pass out of existence. And this law applies not just to beings and things out there, but applies to each and every one of us. We should be the people who can say of certainty of death, doubt about this does not exist in me. However, it is a different matter to know about this intellectually and to remember it occasionally, and on the other hand, to act with knowledge that we shall surely die. Quite a number of people behave as though they were sure of not dying, and some as though they were sure that intentional action, what is karma, had no result. But this is like the foolish view of the ostrich, which is said to bury its head in the sands on the approach of an enemy, assuming that because the enemy could no longer be seen, therefore he no longer existed. But the way of the ostrich does not help us with that. To people who knows but little Dhamma, death seems something strange, something never before experienced, and because of this at least, such people fear death. The question is, do we have need to fear death or not? And if not, then why not? The answer here depends on the actions of individual people. Some people will have cause to fear dying, others will have no cause. What are the causes which bring about the fear of death? And what are the causes which lead to a peaceful death? Fear generally is brought about by presence of some defilements of the heart, delay, and by the sort of actions which are bugs of these defilements. For instance, suppose a person very attached to the pleasure of this world. He is delighted by what is beautiful to the eyes, ear, nose, tongue, and body. This attachment is these things is an aspect of greed, that is lobha. The greed for enjoyment or sensual happiness, which is in his heart, stimulates his search for pleasant sights, sounds, smell, taste, and touches. While when these are experienced by him, in the enjoyment of them, reflecting on them, longing for them, he makes new karma, concerned with sensual desire, and so strengthen the greed in his own heart. And where there is greed, more or less strong, there will be aversion as also. For when a person has greed, which cannot be satisfied, he may well become angry. And with a greed and aversion, there must be a delusion as well. For only deluded people could allow themselves to become greedy and angry, seeing how much harm they do to themselves whenever these defilements arise. So the more bound up to the pleasure and comfort of this life we are, having more attachment to people and possessions, the more difficult it is likely to be for us to die when the time comes for this. Although we have little greed and little aversion, still we shall have some attachments and to some extent fear at the approach of death. And as we are in the position of being ordinary people, with these defilements in our hearts now, we should think of what is to be done so that we can, whenever our time comes, die well. Dying will imply living well now. And living well in the Buddhist sense means that besides enjoyment, we lead a life worthy of human beings and in it benefit others. We have obtained a human body. This is called a most precious advantage. We have this human body because in the past we have lived as a human beings and done some actions which are suitable for human beings. When we have managed to gain human birth, we should use our excellent chance in this life to choose the path of goodness and benefit. As human beings, we can choose either good or evil, the beneficial or harmful, the path of development or path of deterioration. Having a human birth this time, we should live up to the status of human being And the status of human beings means the practice of the 5 precepts in our daily lives. Conduct which is below this level, meaning the breaking of these 5 precepts, is not called the conduct of men. It is subhuman, and such evil karma leads to fear of death and to various fearful sorts of subhuman existence, which are experienced by evildoers according to the fruits of their karma. But the 5 precepts are called the human Dhamma, Manusa Dhamma. They are the Dhamma to be practiced by those who wish to box again in the human realm. In fact, they are the minimum practice of Dhamma for mankind. Many misunderstand taking the refuge and the 5 precepts, as we did in the beginning of this memorial service, as a part of converting oneself to be a Buddhist. In fact, there is no such thing as a conversion in Buddhism. The only conversion the Buddha talked about is converting yourself from irresponsible human being to be a responsible and thoughtful human beings. When one utters, "I take refuge in the Buddha, Dhamma, and Sangha," what it really means is the ABC of Buddhism. When taking the refuge, what you have just promised, that I will lead my life with awakening, that is the Buddha. I will lead my life with balanced truth, that is the Dhamma. And I will lead my life with compassionate community, that is the Sangha. Similarly, when one takes 5 precepts, he promised to himself, saying that I will behave as a normal human being. The act of hurting others or killing, taking things which are not given, not respecting human rights, telling lies, and intoxicating oneself are not a normal acts of a normal human being. Therefore, taking 5 precepts simply means warning yourself to abide in this world with a caution of not losing your humanity. Now, in practicing them, we make ourselves happy. Why is this? The person who kills no living beings, does not take what is not given, and so on, has pure conduct through 2 of the 3 doors of expression. He will be pure in body conduct and pure in speech as well. One who guards bodily actions and speech makes good karma in these respects. Such a person does not harm himself by doing with the body or saying such words as the wise and intelligent people condemn. And because of his pure outward conduct, his mind, the 3rd of the 3 doors of expression, will be more peaceful, less disturbed, and so more happy. And a person like this, who does no harm to himself by keeping the 5 precepts, also harms no one else. In fact, he causes others to become happy. Some people have said that it is not enough merely to refrain from taking life, from taking what is not given, from wrong conduct in human rights, from false speech, and from intoxicants causing carelessness, and that this is the only negative avoidance of evil without any corresponding practices of goodness. Actually, the 5 precepts are not just negative avoidance, for when one does not destroy living beings, one gives them security and peace, and so on for the other precepts. Moreover, a person who practices these 5 precepts of restraint is also encouraged to take up the 5 ennobling qualities corresponding to the precepts. Thus, we have the practice of loving kindness and compassion, corresponding to the 1st precept. With the 2nd goes right livelihood. Along with the 3rd, there is a contentedness or mindfulness, while with the 4th, there is an obvious practice of truth. And the 5th precept has for its counterpart carefulness. Now, when we think about the life of a person who practices the 5 precepts and 5 ennobling qualities, we see that having not harmed others, nor having chosen to deteriorate in his own mind, this person's life leads to freedom from worry, anxiety, and fear. When the basis from which fear arises, the defilement, are even partially removed from the heart, and when they are replaced by the reason, faith, moral conduct, generosity, and wisdom, what chance has fear? So with ourselves, since we have to die with peace in our hearts, unplagued by remorse, thinking of all the good we have done in this life, and of all benefits received by others, our conduct has been in accordance with Dhamma. We should make efforts to practice Dhamma now. It is sure that Dhamma practices now protects one when death comes, for has not Lord Buddha, who has overcome death, said, certainly the Dhamma protects the Dhamma practitioner. The Dhamma well practiced brings happiness to him. It is the karma made by ourselves which determines our future births. It is our karma which is our companion to the next life. Mother, father, relatives, and wealth cannot help at all the person at the point of death, but good karma, the actions, which have purified our own hearts and benefited others, these can help. If we want this sort of help, then we should help ourselves and others now. Of course, these days there are some people who do not believe in rebirth. They say we have one life now, and after that we are finished. If this is so, life is reduced to a meaningless round of toil or pleasures. Where people hold that their single life should be devoted only for the good of the world and the advance of civilization, they must be blind indeed if they cannot see that the evils of this world cannot all be cured by materialistic science. Some conditions are improved, some things worsen, but everywhere life becomes more complex with more problems. If we live only to try to straighten out the tangles of material life, then we shall never get to any lasting goal at all. For all constituents of the material world are not only changing but deteriorating as well. For instance, a beautifully smooth new road in 5 years' time will be already potholed, and the same law hold good for the whole of the material world. Perhaps then the attainment of a glorious golden age of materialism is not the purpose of existing here. Then perhaps it is as some one-lifers would have it, that we exist to have a good time and enjoy ourselves to the full, just as we like and when we like, but this theory, when we examine it, does not appear praiseworthy. For all desires breed conflicts, and the more desires there are, and the more openly they are expressed, and more conflicts, troubles, and sorts of unhappiness are born. Rather than such meaningless and despairing theories, there is the Dhamma, which clearly explains why we are here, that we are what we are because we have made ourselves as we find ourselves now. If we are not satisfied with what we find in ourselves, then there is a Dhamma as the way of training ourselves and benefiting others. And it is now that we make ourselves the future. If we wish that future to be full of happiness and freedom, we should be wise and practice Dhamma now. It is no use just before death regretting that one did not practice. Regrets do no good, but sincere practice now certainly does. Look at this form of different point of view. All of us are looking for happiness and comfort all the time. So for that matter, are all living beings. Now when we experience discomfort and what is unsatisfactory, we try to evade it and seek again for happiness. For instance, one's body gets tired or cramped from sitting in one position for too long, and so we change the position. We seek comfort and try to get away from discomfort. This bodily dukkha is with us all the time as minor discomfort or as great pain, but we always look for its opposite, happiness. Similarly, our minds stained with the defilement must also feel sorrow from mild regrets to the depth of despair. But we seek to find mental happiness all the time, as our search of living beings is always in the directions of happiness and away from suffering. We shall be wise to order our lives now, so that the factors giving rise to happiness are always present, and those giving rise to suffering of various sorts are minimized. Now the factors leading to or supporting happiness are the various aspects of Dhamma practice. Following the teaching of the Dhamma, His Majesty the late king, a pious Buddhist king, initiated the very concept of the sufficiency economy, a noble legacy which he left for the world. However, if we understand it clearly, the sufficiency economy of His Majesty has a very different meaning from a public understanding. First of all, the world economy, His Majesty the late king, didn't mean normal economy as we understand. The king's economy is little to do with a system of production, distribution, and consumption. Etymologically, the Thai term Setakit means noble activities which can apply to every activity we do in our lives. In other words, the late king replaced the ultimate teaching in Buddhism, that is the noble path to noble activities. Whereas the term sufficiency, which in universal term called sustainable, etymologically simply means upholding all activities with firm foundation from below. The word sustainable is derived from Latin. Sus is a prefix which means from below, and the exact root is a tenor which means uphold. In a similar vein, Buddhist term Dhamma or Dharma is also derived from the same root, that is dhr, which means to hold, according to its nature. To simplify, the word sustainable development of His Majesty's version of the sufficiency economy is founded on any activities accomplished with upholding of natural or noble truth. Therefore, we can assume that the first person to talk about sustainable development in this world is the Buddha himself. In his first sermon, which is widely known as the turning the wheel of Dhamma or Dhammacakkappavattana, literally means a discourse about implication of development according to the Dhamma, which is sustainable. In elaboration, Dhamma means sustainable, Chakka means moving forward with firm foundation, and Pavattana means bring those instructions to be a part of one's life. Accordingly, His Majesty the late King's wisdom of sufficiency economy, which is comprised of three circles, moderation, prudence or resiliency, and reasonableness, is a way of presenting the very core of Buddhist teaching, in a secular terms named three trainings: moderation or sila, resiliency or samadhi, and reasonableness or panya. These three circles mean how we incorporate our life with sustainable vision, sustainable aspiration, sustainable communication, sustainable action, sustainable economy, sustainable effort, sustainable mindfulness, and sustainable resiliency. The very teaching of noble path or noble activities as presented by the principle of sufficient economy by the late king. This is a Dhamma for everyone, according to their lives and according to their understanding. His Majesty the late king, out of compassion for us, bequeathed to us with a wonderful Dhamma, which is like a medicine to cure all ills. And all of us need to be cured of disease. For all of us have the ills of greed, aversion, and delusion in our hearts. The medicine of Dhamma is there for us to take it. If we wish to get well, even the greatest of all physicians, the late king, cannot force us to take it if we do not wish to do so. But he does tell us what will be the consequence of refusing to take the medicine: that we shall bound to the wheel of suffering and underdevelopment, blinded by ignorance of the truth within ourselves and driven onward to more suffering by the burning craving in our hearts. What is it best to do? To remove the scales of ignorance from our own eyes so that we see the truth, to win happiness and peace, free from insecurity, and lead others along in this way. And remove from our hearts, even little by little, the raging fire of desire, and so discover the cool and certain refuges there. Or should we continue blind and diseased as we are, leading others by uncertain ways? We have the medicine within us. We shall be wise if we make efforts to this application in our lives. Among those who have finished with this life and who, by their virtuous actions, made themselves and others happy, was His Majesty the late King Bhumibol Adulyadej. In his life, he practiced sustainable way of living with energy and perseverance, so that we may be sure he has been protected by his own practice of Dhamma and will have attained happiness as a result of this. Imina kata punyena, may the power of all merits that we have well accumulated in today's ceremonial company be conducive to the perfections of the Dhamma of His Majesty the late King Bhumibol Adulyadej, the world's development king, as of the wishes of everyone who is present here. I have delivered a sermon on the subject of His Majesty the late King and Buddhism as of time availability. May I now end my deliverance of the sermon. Ewang, thus indeed it is.
Radio Thailand, Dhamma Talk.